Hey there, math students. Welcome to today's lesson on slope-intercept form. Now, slope-intercept form is a big, important topic that you guys are going to be using for years to come, so let's get started. So first of all, this right here is our standard slope-intercept formula. Now, what is a formula? Think of it kind of like a recipe. It's just telling you what to put where. Now, the two things I want you to notice first in this formula are the m and the b. So these represent different things. The m represents the slope. Now, why does m represent slope? That's a good question. But if it helps, you can think of the m as standing for where we move next, because that's kind of what the slope is telling us, right? And you guys know how to find slope. Slope is when you have the rise over the run. And if you have any questions on how to find slope, don't worry, we're about to do several examples, so you'll get a review on that. Okay, the other thing to look at is our b. Now, the b is what the y-intercept is. Okay, now what is a y-intercept? That's kind of new for y'all. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. And don't worry, again, if that doesn't make sense, we're about to do a bunch of examples and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Now b, you can think of that if you want as the beginning point for your graph. Okay, so those are the two things that you're going to need to change every time you use your formula. You're going to need to write a number here and a number here. Now the y and the x, when you're done writing these equations, the y and the x will still be there. Okay, so make sure in your final equations you have a y and you have an x. So this is the way your equations should look. You should always have a y equals, and then you should have some kind of number right here. Whatever the slope is, that's what you're going to have there. So there's going to be a number there, and then you're going to write your x. Don't forget that x, it's easy to forget. And then you have your plus sign, and then you're going to have another number here. And whatever number is here, that's going to be the y-intercept. Okay? Let's do an example. So down here at the bottom of the page, we have an example. It's just in words. They're telling us the slope, or m, of a line is -3. And the y-intercept, or b, is 5. Write the equation of the line. Okay, so now remember we have our y equals mx plus b. So the slope goes right there in front of the x, and the y-intercept goes there at the end, okay? So what did they do here? They took that 3 and they put it right there in front of the x. So they took out the m, they threw it away, and they put the -3 in. And then they put the 5 over here at the end. So like I said, in your final equation, once you're done with your work, you will still have a y there, and you'll still have an x there. But the m will have turned into a number, and the b will have turned into another number. Okay, let's look at some more examples. Alrighty, so it says slope-intercept formula. Let's just write our formula down here too, so we don't have to flip back and forth in case we forget it. Y equals mx plus b. And if you like to look at it with those blanks, you could write it that way too. Y equals blank x plus blank. Okay, so now let's look at example number 1. It says write an equation in slope-intercept form for each line. Okay, so if the line has a slope of -7 and it has a y-intercept of 5, then we just need to put -7 into that blank and 5 into that blank. So it's going to look like this. Y equals -7x plus 5. Okay, so the slope number is right in front of the x, and the y-intercept number is right at the end. Okay, let's try number 2. And if you want to pause your video and try it yourself, that'd be great too. Now that I'm looking at it more closely though, it might be a little different, but you could at least do the first step by yourself if you want to. So I'm going to plug my 0 in right in front of the x. Okay, so I have 0x, and then my y-intercept is -2. So I could write plus -2, or it's easier just to write -2. But both of those would be correct. So I'm going to write this other one there, plus -2, like with parentheses. That's just longer, right? So I'm going to stick with this, but there's nothing wrong with doing it this way. Okay, so now look at this. What is 0 times x? It's just 0, right? So this whole thing would be the same thing as y equals 0 minus 2, which is the same thing as y equals -2. Okay, so sometimes there might be a little bit of simplifying. We'll talk about that more later. This kind of simplifying, this will really only happen when you have either a horizontal or a vertical line, okay? Okay, so here's another example. This one is more normal, so if you want to try this one by yourself, that would be awesome. So our slope is negative 2/3 and our y-intercept is 1. So we're going to go y equals, now we're going to write our slope, negative 2/3. And don't forget your x, it has to go there. And then our intercept is a positive 1, so I'm going to put plus 1. So like over here it was negative 2, so I put minus 2 right there. This one's a positive 1, so I'm going to put a plus 1. And that's all we do. I have my y, I have my x, and I substituted a number for m and a number for b. Okay, let's look at more examples. Let's look at number 4. Zoom it in just a little bit. Try that again. Oh, okay, there we go. So let's figure out what our slope is, and let's figure out what our y-intercept is. So for slope, I'm just going to write over here m equals. And now let's see here. We've got a dot there and a dot there. So I'm going to draw my big stair-step thingy. By the way, in your notes page, it might look kind of faded on the lines, on the axes. The two axes, plural of axis is axes. I know that sounds funny, right? So I just went over mine with a pen, but you can do it however you want. And if you're using the PDF, it's already been reinforced for you. Okay, so here's our big stair-step thingy. Let's see, how far are we going down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Down 6. And by the way, it's going downhill, so I know it's going to be negative, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say negative 6. And how far are we going over? 1, 2. So negative 6 over 2. Now what do I need to do with this? Can it be simplified? Yeah, it can be. So I'm going to divide both by 3. I'll get negative 3 over 1, which is the same thing as negative 3. So m is going to be negative 3. Okay, that's the slope. Now we're going to do the y-intercept, which I know is a little bit newer for you, but it's not hard. So just watch what I do. You're going to follow the graph until it crosses the y-axis. Now remember, this right here is the y-axis, okay? Y. So follow the graph till it crosses, which is right here. And then just figure out what number that is on the y-axis. Here's 0. Right where they cross is 0, right? So you're going to count up 1, 2. So it looks like our y-intercept is 2. So over here I'm going to say b equals 2. Okay, now we've got the easy part, which is just plugging it into that formula. And I am out of room. No, I'll just write it right down here. Okay, so y equals, and now we're going to write our slope. I'm just pointing to this right here. We got to write our slope in that blank. So slope is negative 3. And then we write our x. And then our b, our y-intercept, is positive 2. So let's do plus 2. Okay, and you are done with that example. Let's do another one. Number 5 is a little bit different. You see it's a vertical line, so it's just going to work out a little bit differently. So what is our slope for a vertical line? Slope is undefined, right? Slope undefined. Okay, and our y-intercept? Okay, where does this line cross the y-axis? It doesn't. These lines are parallel. It's never going to cross the y-axis. So what do we do here? Okay, this is our first exception. What does this line cross? It crosses this line right here, right? What do we call this line? Call it the x-axis, right? Okay, so figure out where this line crosses the x-axis. It crosses at 1, 2, 3. And then all you're going to do is write an equation saying x equals 3. That's all you do. So figure out where it crosses the x-axis and then write x equals 3, and then you're done. Okay? Let's go on to the next example. This one is more in the normal category. It's got a slope and it's got a y-intercept. I will write our stuff down here. I keep running out of room. Sorry about that. So let's figure out our slope first. So I'm going to draw my big stair-step thing. Okay, it looks like we're going down 3. So I'm going to say my slope is equal to negative 3. And then we're going over 2. Over 2. Okay, now we just got to figure out what? Y-intercept, right? Okay, so I'm going to say b equals, and I'm going to follow my graph to, should I stop here? No, that's the x-axis, don't stop there. Go all the way to the y-axis, this one that goes up and down, right? Stop there, circle it if you want to, and then figure out where you are on the axis. Where they cross is 0, that's called the origin, it's 0. So let's go down, so it's going to be negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. So b is negative 3. Okay, now we're ready to write our formula. So y equals, now we got to write our slope, right? That was the m, so negative 3 over 2. and then write your x. And then you have to write your y-intercept. It's a negative number, so I'm just going to write minus, and then I'm going to write 3. Whoops, I'm running out of room. Okay, and there's your answer there. Let's go ahead to example number 7. Okay, if you want to pause this and try it on your own, go for it. That would be awesome. Let's figure out our slope first. So m equals, okay, there's a dot right down here and a dot here. So we're going to draw our stair step like this. Let's see how far up we go. First of all, we're going uphill, so it'll be a positive number. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's up 5 and over 1, 2, 3, over 3. Okay, slope is done. Let's figure out y-intercept. Follow that line until it hits the y-axis, which it does right here. Now go back up to 0 and count down to figure out where on the y-axis it hits. So -1, -2, -3, -4. So I'm going to say b equals -4. And now let's write our formula. Y equals 5/3 x minus 4. Okay, did you get it? If you did, awesome work. That's awesome. Okay, let's go on to number 8. 8 is a horizontal line, so it's going to look a little bit different. It's not quite as weird as this one, but it's a little bit weird. Let's go ahead and talk about it in terms of slope and y-intercept. So what is the slope for a horizontal line? Our slope is going to be 0. If you said no slope, that's a good answer too. You can say 0 or no slope. Okay, what is our y-intercept? Well, you follow it to here. It looks like it crosses the y-axis at 1, 2, 3. So b equals 3. Now let's go ahead and plug these numbers into our formula. We're going to get y equals 0x plus 3. Y equals 0x plus 3. Now that's kind of like this one up here, right? You had 0x and then you have to simplify it. All right, let's simplify it. Y equals, well, 0 times x equals 0 plus 3, because 0 times anything equals 0, right? And then 0 plus 3 is just going to equal 3. So all of a sudden we get kind of a different looking formula. So we just have y equals 3. Is that right? It doesn't really look like slope-intercept form anymore, but it is right. So when you have a horizontal line, it's going to look like this. Y equals some number. And that number is going to be wherever the line happens to cross that y-axis. So in this case, y equals 3. So for a horizontal line, it's going to be a y equals. And then for a vertical line, as we saw earlier, it's going to be an x equals. Okay? And if you get those confused, just remember the letter you use should be the axis that gets crossed. So this line is crossing the y-axis, so I'm going to use a y. This line is crossing the x-axis, so I'm going to use an x. Okay, let's go on to example 9. Let's find our slope first. So m equals, okay, let's draw our big stair step thing. Okay, so it looks like we're going down 1, because we're going downhill, we're going to have a negative, so down 1, and then over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 5. So our m, or our slope, is -1 over 5. Now our y-intercept is going to be, let's see, follow it to the graph where the y-axis is, and then count up, 1, 2. It hits at 2, so our y-intercept is 2. Okay, write that in your equation. Y equals -1/5 x plus 2. And that's how you do it. Let's look at the next page. We have a few more examples left. There's nothing new in any of them. So if you're feeling good about this, then great. If you want a little bit more practice, stick with me, okay? Okay, slope. Let's figure it out. It looks like we could draw a dot here, and we could draw a dot here. So our slope is going to be up 2 over 2. Now that's going to simplify to 1, isn't it? Okay, cool. And our y-intercept is, let's see, where does it cross the y-axis? Right there. Start at your origin and count up. 1, 2. So y-intercept is 2. That means our equation will be y equals 1x plus 2. And we could leave it like this, or we could simplify it even more. It could be y equals 1x is just the same thing as x, right? So y equals x plus 2. This is the way you're going to see it most of all, but this is not wrong. This one is totally fine. You're just going to see this one more. All right, next example. Slope. Okay, let's draw some dots again. We've got it crossing there, and then it crosses again here. It looks like it goes downhill, so I'm going to go ahead and make my negative, and then we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, and over 1. Negative 3 over 1, which is the same thing as negative 3. Y-intercept, it crosses right here. Let's count up. It's a 3. And now let's write our equation. Y equals negative 3x. And if you wrote negative 3 over 1, totally correct also. And then y-intercept is a positive 3, so write plus 3. There you go. I have 4 more examples for you, and then I'll let you get started on your assignment. Okay, here we go. Slope. It looks like we could put a dot there, and we can put a dot there. We're going uphill, so it'll be positive, and it'll be 1 over 4. And then the y-intercept is right here. Start at your origin, 0, 0, and count down. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. So let's put that in our equation. Y equals 1 over 4x minus 5. Okay, let's do another example. Slope here. It looks like it crosses a whole bunch. We could put lots of dots here. I'm just going to use these. It's going downhill, so it'll be negative. We're going to go down 1 and over 1. So negative 1 over 1. That's the same thing as negative 1. Y-intercept, it crosses, look, it crosses right at 0. Okay, y-intercept equals 0. And now let's plug this into our equation. So y equals negative 1x plus 0. Now, when you have a plus 0, that doesn't really mean anything. Like if you have 4 apples and you add 0, it doesn't really change the 4 apples, right? This plus 0 doesn't change what the negative 1x is equal to. So you can just drop it. And you can do y equals negative 1x. Now, does the negative 1 actually change what the x is? Well, the negative part does. The 1 doesn't. So you could actually drop the 1 and keep the negative and write y equals negative x. Well, this is just getting messy. Sorry about that. Y equals negative x. So both of these are correct, but you're going to see this one the most. Okay, more examples. Got 2 more for you. Hey, we've got a horizontal line. So remember what I said? Well, it's asking for slope and y-intercept. Let's go ahead and do that. Slope is 0. And if you said no slope, that's a good answer too. Y-intercept is, let's see, here's the origin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now remember what I said about a horizontal or vertical line. See which axis it crosses. It looks like it's crossing the y-axis, right? So you're going to write that letter equals, and then the number where it crosses. In this case, it's a 5. Now with a horizontal line, if you want to use these, you can. You could have done y equals 0x plus 5, and when you simplify that all down, it's just going to equal 5, which is, you can see it's the same. This isn't going to work for vertical lines, though. Let's look at a vertical line. In this case, the slope is undefined, and the y-intercept is non-existent. I should really write none. That would be much more professional. There we go. So we're going to definitely follow our line down to an axis, figure out which axis it is, and write that letter, okay? So here it's crossing an axis right here, right? Which axis is it crossing? It looks like it's the x-axis, right? So let's write x equals, and now we have to figure out where it's crossing. So here's 0, 0. We're going to go negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. X equals negative 3. And that is all I have for you today. If you have questions, ask your teacher. We love to help you guys. Have an awesome day. Bye.